Welcome to Post in Black, everyone. My name is David Hunter Jr., and we are so excited to have you with us for another episode of Post in Black as we celebrate Black excellence behind the lens. Today's episode is a very special episode because we are thrilled to welcome none other than Aurelia Belfield. Aurelia Belfield is the music and casting supervisor and executive producer at Trailblazer Studios in North Carolina. She graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in 2009 with a BA in Dramatic Arts. She has over 18 credits to her name as a music supervisor. She's worked on The Future of America's Past, Salvage Dog, Seven Little Johnstons, Sister Wives. I mean, I could go on and on about Aurelia, but I'm going to bring her into the room and let her tell you about herself. Aurelia, thank you for joining us on Post in Black today.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
Oh, we're thrilled. We're excited. We're happy to have you. And as a tradition here at Post in Black, before we even ask one question, we're going to start with the icebreaker. That is our question. Is that okay with you?
Yes, that's fine.
All right. So those of you listening, you're going to hear it, but you'll see it on the bottom of your screen here. If you had to spend $10,000 today, how would you spend it? Not in 2 days, not in 1 day.
Right now, how would I spend it right now? Aside from doing massive mutual aid effort in my community, besides that, or is that can be my answer?
I mean, you can spend it however you want. Yeah.
All right, $10,000. I think I would definitely do direct mutual aid in my community, just making sure folks have stuff to eat, a place to stay, all that kind of good stuff. I think that would make me feel best. I really like to eat and I really like to travel, but when folks around me aren't doing their best, yeah.
No, I love that. I love that. And that's really deep. It says a lot about who you are as a person. And I think we're going to tap into that. It also says a lot about me because I was waiting to hear what restaurant you were going to say you're going to go to or what place you were going to travel. I was like, yeah, I would go there too. So that says a lot about what I was thinking. Oh man, but we're thrilled to have you. As you may know, we celebrate Black excellence behind the lens. And so we celebrate those who are working in post-production, whether it's music supervising, editing, assistant editing, whatever it may be. And obviously that's a field that you have worked in for a while. So would you mind telling the people a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you got started in the industry?
Sure. I am actually from Long Island. I am from a little town right outside of Central Islip called Bayshore. Me and LL Cool J, born in the same hospital. Very different paths. But I got started in music supervision in college. I didn't know that it was a thing. And apparently it was a thing that I'd been doing for friends, for plays and for student films, but it wasn't until about my junior year of college I realized that it was a job that people did and not just favors that I was doing because people thought I was good at it. And I ended up getting into the industry because I was majoring in theater and screenwriting. And I got the opportunity to do an internship in LA through my college. And I cussed and fussed because there was no support. Well, what are the odds that I'm going to get hired? Maybe 30%. And I said, well, no, we are not going to do that. Also, if you can find me an internship in New York, I'll do that. If you can find me an internship pretty much anywhere on the East Coast, I have plenty of family, plenty of places to stay for 3 months. And somebody liked me well enough to say, oh, you know what? I know somebody in Raleigh. They are looking for somebody that's doing exactly this. And it was just, very blessed timing.
Wow. That's so interesting because you got that kind of roller coaster of a situation where you get excited. You're like, wow, there's an opportunity in LA to maybe do what I want. But then you start looking at all the fine print and it's not really adding up to going to be, conducive to what you need to be out there. So it could almost be like, man, I really wanted that. But I like how you kind of had that resolve to say, okay, well, if it's not for me, there's going to be something else for me. And then the situation came up for you to move from New York to Raleigh, North Carolina, which is where you are currently, correct?
Yeah, I'm in Raleigh. So I actually went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I interned where I work now for a few months during the school year. And then when I graduated, that's when I went back to New York. To freelance. And then, folks at Trailblazer like me well enough to say, we actually want you back full time. Can you come back full time? Wow. And I said, I love health insurance and I like you. So sure, this sounds like a great idea. And that was
that sounds like adulting. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like that was about 10 years ago, and I have been very happily there ever since. And I think, you know, a lot of people have different stories. A lot of people have the story of, you know, I packed up all my stuff and I had nothing, and I moved to LA and I was cool. That just was not my ministry. That was not my path. I used to feel weird about it when I was younger because a lot of people chose that path, and I don't anymore. I mean, what I've come to learn is that everybody's family situation is different. Every home situation is different. And I was just not in a place where I could do that, where I could feel comfortable doing that. My family's very old. My grandparents at the time, all of them were still living, but were very up in age, and some of them were not doing great. And I just didn't feel comfortable moving fully across the country. And if something were to happen, not being able to afford to come back and help.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And you know, you said it right there. It's not your story. Everybody's story is different. When I first moved to Los Angeles, that was not my story either. I wasn't going to come out here if I didn't have something, you know, to come out here with. I didn't know everybody, but I was like, I'm going to have a job at least when I get there. What happened after that is a different story. But in terms of you, obviously you went to school in Chapel Hill in North Carolina, the internship, you ended up working you're still working at the place where you interned. What was the bug? Because, you know, we're talking about post-production, and you kind of mentioned that you had a background in the arts already. So were you able to kind of explore different areas or different facets of the industry, and that's how you kind of came about editing or post-production?
So I came into school with the big book, because this was before, like, we had internet, but it wasn't great, right? Yeah. So they still gave you the entirety of like all of the classes that we offer. And I went through with like 3 different color highlighters and like, all right, this is what I'm going to take. First choice, second choice, third choice. This is what's going to fill my requirements, and this is what I want to do. So I went in thinking that I was going to work in the theater. That was my first love. That was my deal. I wanted to perform and I wanted to write. I ended up on a different path. I always did music. I am in a very musically inclined family, not partially talent-wise, partially just the love of it. And I just always loved telling stories through music, and that was always part of my character building process as an actor. It was part of my storytelling process as a playwright and a screenwriter. And so I would help other people through that process with their works. And then it occurred to me, I forget what movie it was, but I saw something. It was the first time that I had seen the single card credit for a music supervisor. And I like rushed to Google to figure out what that meant and what that was. Wow. And I said, up until that point, I thought it was producers and directors making these decisions. I was not aware at all that there was a department for it. I knew there was a music department, but in my mind, that was like just composers, and the composers always work directly with the directors, and the directors decide what licensed music goes in. I had no idea that it was somebody's responsibility.
It's a layered industry. I think the reason why we asked that question in regards to post-production is because coming up, you know, we don't know much about the industry unless you grow up in it. And so when you're watching television and movies, you're like, okay, actor and a director. And even for me growing up, I was like, oh, the director is the one that holds the camera, and then they tell all the people what to do, and they do directions. Like, no, the director's there, and that's the camera operator, and then there's an assistant camera operator, and then there's somebody else holding the boom to get the sound. And you don't piece all those things together when you're just coming up. But
not at all.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't occur to me. And like coming up in the theater, I knew about all of those jobs, but I am like not technically inclined at all. So in terms of like what other creative jobs there were behind the scenes, like in post-production, for film and television, or even in the theater, I had no idea. Like, I can't hold a saw to save my life. They passed me through my technical theater credit because they were like, girl, we just don't want you in here. Like, yeah, fine. Like, you need to pass this to graduate. Okay, please leave. Don't step foot in here again. I learned how to sew, but I wasn't great at it. And sound design was the only thing that I was almost good at, but I was much better at music than I was at like Foley or like mixing. So that was my deal.
No, for you, you mentioned, again, we're talking about all the different arts, but I have no doubt that all of these things have come together to still help you in the career that you're doing now. And so, being a music supervisor now, and I just want to talk about the trajectory, because so many times people are getting into the industry and then they hop around to different locations. You're coming at it from a different standpoint, where you've been able to stabilize and stay at one place, but still have connections to so many different people. What does that look like for your career? And how has it been different from when you first started? Like, what was it like when you first started to where you are now?
So first of all, I think it has come about because I've just been extraordinarily blessed. Like, that's the main thing. But just being nice. Being nice and pleasant to work with. People ask all the time, like, how did you guys manage to build a career at all in North Carolina? And here's the deal. This is like the logistical stuff that people don't really consider. Lots of places have airports. Wild concept, I know. But Raleigh has a big old international airport. We're maybe 15 minutes away from it. And it is very simple. I can get through TSA and everything else and land right in JFK faster than I can drive from one side of Manhattan to the other. Right?
No, I'm jealous of you, because I live in LA, and I 15 minutes, I know not what you speak of.
So as quickly as I can do that, I can be in New York and on my way to a meeting. It's 4.5 hours to get to LA, and technically only one, because by the time I get there, only an hour has passed in Pacific time. It's not a huge deal. It's just a thing that people don't really think about. It takes a little bit of patience. So you have to wait, a couple hours or a day, as opposed to somebody being right down the street. But I think we've all learned in quarantine that, like, Al Gore's internet is really something nice, and it gets stuff done really quickly. So
it does its needs. I mean, you're mentioning that, and like I said, like you said, the internet allows us to do so much more. When you first started out at Trailblazer, coming into it, did you already have a job that you were seeking out to do? Do you know, okay, I'm going into this, want to be a music supervisor? Or what was it like when you first got in there to kind of get adjusted and get settled to get you on the path that you're on?
So fortunately, they had just started expanding. So John and Kate, which was a show that they were doing post on, had just started to blow up, and they needed a music supervisor because they had a ton of original compositions and composers to sort of wrangle, and cue sheets and all of this other stuff to do. So I just sort of stepped into it at the right time to be able to do the job that I had intended to do in the first place. And I gave myself 3 years and said, okay, after 3 years, I'll decide if I want to move to New York or not. Because that's the deal. I'm from New York. That was the only other place that I had thought that I would want to live.
So you gave yourself 3 years in terms of saying, okay, if this doesn't work out, then I'm going to go back.
If I decide that I don't like it, then I'm going to move. And 3 years passed, and I was really happy. And then, 3 years passed again, and I was really happy. And so I said, I like it here. So I'm going to stay, and was able to work consistently. And it's a small business, so there's a lot of being scrappy involved. I was doing stuff other than music supervision, which was fine with me. I was learning, and I was, developing a wider skill set, and learning about how different aspects of even post work, it just helps me as a music supervisor. I think a lot of frustration comes in when folks are like moving, especially from like super low budget indies where you have to do 55 things yourself into like more funded studio projects. It can get frustrating for folks because it's like, okay, you've hired me, this person, it's supposed to be the best person, but they don't know how any of this pipeline works or any of this workflow works. They know how to do their job.
Right.
And they don't know why anybody else's job is important, or how that job leads into their job. And so having a team that has to know everybody's job and the hows and the whys is nice.
It helps. I guess you explain too, because a lot of people, I know what a music supervisor does, but for somebody that's watching or listening right now that doesn't know, what is your day-to-day like in your role and in your position?
Sure. So top line day-to-day, I am the person who is working directly with the director or producers to help figure out musically what a show sounds like.
And when you say what a show sounds like, are you talking about like just the music that's going to go for like the trailer, or actually music during the scenes, or what is that?
So this can be different things. So there's a bunch of like awesome music supervisors that their specialty is trailers. There are entire music agencies that just do trailers, or just trailer houses, and that's it. And they do an awesome job because that is a specific skill set. And the way that they, especially now, the way that they cut these trailers and layer this music is really, really awesome. I have mostly worked in documentaries and unscripted. So it is a little bit different. I've done some scripted stuff as well, but mostly I work in long form. So I'm working in television and film. I do ads sometimes, but again, that's like another whole awesome skill set that people have. So mainly I'm doing long form work. I am working with a director or producer to decide what they want the thing to sound like musically. I am curating some like reference audio and some temp audio for editors to cut to. I am helping find composers that are a good fit, and working directly with them as like a filter, because it's like, okay, I have to like read minds, right? I have to talk to this director, figure out exactly what their buzzwords mean, and then relay that in a way that makes some sense to the composers. So I'm the person that gets to get to know the director and producer and any sort of partners that I have that are working with music agencies that are licensing music to me, music libraries, labels. You know, I need an artist that can do this, this, and this. I need a track that does this, this many BPMs and this and this. And sort of getting all of that together and figuring out what works, and then what works in time with what's on the screen, and then making sure it's all legal and everybody's getting paid adequately.
So you checked about, I'm about to say 15 different boxes right there with the responsibilities that you have on your plate. I would say someone that's worked in your position for the amount of years that you've worked in, even though there's a lot of work that's going on there, you have to have love for what you do.
I adore it.
Yeah. So with that love, what would you say is the most difficult part of the job that it's still, you know, almost testing, you know, working your muscles on the daily basis?
Trying to manage a lot of different personalities. Every director is going to be different. And you're not going to everybody's not going to be your friend. Everybody's not going to be your best bud. And learning how to tiptoe through that, and just to make sure that everybody's still happy at the end of the day. You're going to work with people who maybe are not the most experienced, but are definitely trying to fake the funk a little bit. And then that can get you into some trouble, especially with contracts. You know, writing contracts, drafting licenses, and cue sheets are always the time code of the show, and every single music cue at that time code, and composer publisher information correctly with, you know, all of the splits, all of the percentages for each person correct. And that is meticulous, and that takes time. If you have a good assistant, and if you have a great AE, that is a huge help. But sometimes some of that stuff just comes down to manually having to do it. I also do music edits sometimes. And that is a skill that I'm always honing.
Yeah. You again, and I sound like a broken record when I mentioned that you're making a lot of great notes and sharing a lot of insights. And I'm loving how the fact that you were a writer or are a writer, our theater background, but then you're still using those writing skills to work on the contracts, and that's inspiring to show people that nothing that you've done won't come in handy for you down the road. I want to flip really quickly though, because you're a Black woman and you're working in this industry, and it's not something that you usually see. And you talk about music supervisor, you're talking about having a lot of control. What was that anything that stood out to you when you first got into the industry at Trailblazer? And then in general, have you seen anybody else like yourself? Because it's rare that you see these people, these type of positions, having someone like yourself in them and really, really shining a light like you're doing.
I'm lucky because I came into Trailblazer and my direct supervisor is a Black man.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I got to work with him out of the gate in terms of my first long-term position. And that was excellent. And also I was young and I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't know enough to feel weird about anything. So I just came in I know what I'm going to learn, and I'm going to know what I'm doing, and and I already know I'm going to be good at this. So let's go. Wow. And I was on a little island for a really long time until recently because I was not in a huge market. And then I got involved with the Guild of Music Supervisors. It was an enormously excellent resource. I'm on their diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. And that's where I got to meet a lot of other, women of color. Madonna Wade Reed, who is the VP of the Guild, has been an awesome person for me to talk to. And it was the first time that I had seen somebody, that far ahead of me in their career, to be able to look at them and say, okay, this is somebody who knows what they're doing, who is doing what I'm doing and is doing it to a level of excellence that I aspire to, and has just been at it and great at it, and can give advice from the perspective that I need to hear it from. And didn't come in recently with digital stuff and working with awesome collectives like what you're doing and what I've been doing in my life. Folks our age have learned to build collectives. Madonna had to do this from Jump Street, and walk into a room and be the only Black woman. And to be able to hear from somebody exactly what that's like, to have to navigate the industry as it was and as it is, was hugely valuable. And I didn't get that until, a couple years ago.
Yeah. And I think that's something that you're touching on, and that we try to touch on here, Posting Black. We're highlighting people because you just don't know. And sometimes you could be in it and not even realize you're in a bubble. And to have that, if your first experience to be working with a Black man and see somebody in that position, it almost is like, oh, okay, this is normal. But when I'm sure you've talked to other people in your field, they're like, no, that's not normal. That's not usual. There's two of you at one studio, and you know what I mean? You guys have control. That's really rare. Yeah. What do you see for yourself moving forward in your career? I mean, obviously you're very happy at Trailblazer. We love what you all are doing. What do you see for yourself in your career personally that you'd like to really help move forward in terms of career wise, or just as a collective, like you said, doing stuff for the community, reaching out? What does that look like for you in the next few years?
I want to do more projects. Okay. I'm doing some really awesome stuff right now. I'm doing some projects around the Tulsa race massacre, which I think are really important. More projects like that are close to my heart. I mean, I minored in, women and gender studies. And I said, if entertainment didn't work out, I was going to go back to school and get a master's in Africana studies and teach race and gender studies at community college. So stuff like that is always going to be dear to my heart. I know a ton of musicians, so more opportunities to be able to put my friends on because they are fantastic is always way up there, and just work on projects that I really love and care about, and have, the funding to be able to pay somebody's rent, like to be able to do a placement that I know is going to pay somebody's rent for 6 months. That kind of stuff is what makes me feel great, and to just get to broaden the community more, give more people opportunities. That's why I like Post versus being an actor, is because I get to make decisions for people. I get to put people in line for opportunities that I wasn't given, because the person that was making those decisions when I was coming up wasn't me.
No, I love that. And that's really, it's like opening the door for others who are coming after you. And I guess that leads me to one of our last questions here. What does it look like for you? What would you say to somebody who's just starting out and wanting to get into post-production and doesn't necessarily know which part of it they want to go into? Obviously, you're a music supervisor, but what would you say it would be your encouragement for them to start doing right now?
Think about what your interests are, and there's going to be something for you. So don't think about what you like to do. I'm not a technical person. I'm not a numbers person. And I said, music and storytelling are what I'm good at. And so I learned that was a position that I could do both of those things in. Think about what aspects of the industry you're interested in terms of I like video, or I like audio. I like to edit. I like to listen to the sound mix think about the shows and the films that you like, the aspects of them that you like. Start digging into that more. I like the way this is shot. I like the way this is colored. I like it's the set design. All of that stuff like that. Dig into it a little bit more, and that's going to be a job. Somebody's doing that. Somebody's making that decision, and you can be the person that's making that decision.
Yeah, I think that's fire. And I connect with that so much, because when talking to so many different people for Post in Black and the episodes and all the interviews, there's a common theme that you all are saying, and you haven't even seen the other people speak, but there's a common theme of you saying, I saw something in the show and it stuck to me. And then I went and researched that, and you saw the music supervisor and you saw that by itself. And you said, what does that do? And that just kind of got you on the path of doing research. And that's another part. You have to do the work. You have to really go and find out about it, because these positions don't jump out at you. You have to go look for them. But when you look for them, you'll be happy what you found. I think so. Yeah. Is there anything? I know you said you're working on the Tulsa, the massacres and that documentary. But is there anything else that you're working on that we should be on the lookout for? And where can people follow you or stay up to date with what you're doing?
Oh, there's a lot of cool stuff that's coming up that's not announced yet, so I can't announce it.
Oh, okay.
But if you follow me IG, Twitter, that will will keep you most up to date with what it is that I'm doing. I'm actually working on a Zoom theater piece. It's an all female production of Othello set in a predominantly white university. So there's always something to be on the lookout for. But yeah, Nat Geo, Tulsa Race Massacre doc, and also covering the rest of the Red Summer is coming out this summer.
You have a busy schedule, busy plate, but we thank you for taking time out today to talk with us for Post in Black. Everyone, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode with Aurelia Belfield. This was an amazing episode. Please stay up to date with everything that's happening with us at Post in Black and Made for More Entertainment. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms and stay tuned for new episodes. We'll see you next time.